The best way that I can describe Venom 3 is if you started dating somebody and you introduced them to your friends and they were all like, yeah, I think this guy might kind of suck, and you said, no, I'm gonna prove you wrong, and you held on for another 2 installments and then realized, holy shit, they were right. Hey y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. As of the time of this video's recording, Venom 3: The Last Dance is officially out and has been for a little less than a week, and I finally got around to watching this one. Now, if you remember watching my trailer reaction, you probably know that I had very little faith in this movie to begin with, which kind of sucks because I actually really liked the beginning of this franchise, and I'll get into that in just a minute. I'm going to kick this one off with my usual non-spoiler review, and then I'll get into the review/nitpick portion. Honestly, I can't give Venom 3: The Last Dance for my rating any more than a 3 out of 10. And that's honestly being generous. But first, a word from our sponsors. We're all a little guilty of being chronically online, but that also means we're chronically at risk. When surfing the web unprotected, you could be getting tracked, hacked, or even worse, having your personal private information end up on the dark web. But today's sponsor, NordVPN, works to protect users from online threats, censorship, and surveillance. Right now, you can get a huge discount with the purchase of a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months at NordVPN.com/SnarkyJay. Try it risk-free now with a 30-day back guarantee. With all the research I do collecting stuff for videos, I surf the web quite a bit. NordVPN's threat protection guards my every click. It checks file downloads for malware, blocks links to malicious websites, and it keeps me invisible to web trackers so I can surf safely. With 24/7 customer support and protection on up to 10 devices, NordVPN is the ultimate in protection for chronically online people like us. So take advantage of this deal and get a huge discount on the purchase of a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months at NordVPN.com/SnarkyJay. Try it totally risk-free right now with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, okay, Venom: The Last Dance. I know that everybody, I think, kind of thought that Venom was gonna be bad from the start. I genuinely feel like the first one is a super guilty pleasure for me. Yes, I understand Venom without Spider-Man, that sucks. Totally agree. But for whatever reason, I really kind of connected with the first one. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I've always liked Venom, and I thought it was goofy in a fun way. And the second one just got worse, because it was like the goofy in a fun way that felt like a fresh take on Venom just got worse when they brought Carnage into it and just completely mischaracterized the whole situation. And so I already didn't think that Venom 3 was going to be any better. But being that I started on the journey with the Venom franchise with such high hopes, I knew that regardless of how bad I thought it was going to be, I had to watch Venom 3. This entire movie, to me, had the effect that being in timeout has on a child, where you sit there and you're squirming and miserable, and you're kind of unjustifiably in a position you'd rather not be in, but you have to be in it anyway, and you have to sit through this thing until it's over. That's kind of how I felt about Venom 3. I spent the entire movie squirming in my seat, wishing it was over. And this is coming from somebody who not only loves Tom Hardy and thinks he's a phenomenal actor, but also has the weirdest crush on Venom. And no, I will not be elaborating, don't ask me to. I have so many reasons to want to like this movie, and yet it was so fucking bad. At every turn, I felt the dialogue got worse. It was ham-fisted with exposition. Instead of showing they had to tell, most of the performances to me were completely lackluster and forgettable. Again, the only guy who delivers on anything is Tom Hardy, and I'll get into that in a minute. The effects and the visuals in some of these scenes look really terrible, and I had the same complaint about the second Venom movie. The big fights between Carnage and Venom just looked like big CGI blob messes, and unfortunately this movie does the exact same thing. And even though this is supposed to be the big send-off to Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom, it doesn't feel like it does a great job of wrapping up the trilogy at all. This film is so bad and so forgettable that I would argue it's probably in my top 5 worst movies of 2024, which is saying something because it's been a really bad year for movies. But it's also so forgettable that had I not written down notes while I was watching it, I probably would not have much to say for the nitpicking section. Again, 3 out of 10, and the only reason it's getting those 2 points to not be like a 1 out of 10 is because I really do love Tom Hardy. I think he does a great job in this role, but yeah, Sony, I don't know why they keep making these. I want to kind of get into the recap slash nitpick section of this. So from this point moving forward, there will be spoilers for Venom: The Last Dance. Let's get into it. So when I saw that Null was going to be the villain for this one, I thought, one, we were going to see a lot more of him. We don't actually ever see his face in this movie until an end credits scene, which I thought was kind of odd. We're basically seeing his xenophages work for him. But I do love that because the other Venom films made no mention of Null, really didn't get into the history of Venom or the other symbiotes, they essentially just kind of throw out the exposition for you within the first 15 seconds of the movie. Null has already explained in a voiceover what it is that he wants, and that same kind of point gets hammered in throughout the movie by different characters. So Venom and Eddie are basically the key that could unlock the imprisonment of Null so that he can take over the world, which seems to be his plan at the end of the movie anyway, because we get that in an end credits scene, but wasn't he already defeated? Anyway, whatever. I do also want to acknowledge that in the first 5 minutes of this movie, they retconned the one thing that could have made this version of Venom interesting. I don't know how many of you remember that in Venom 2, we actually see Eddie enter the version of the multiverse that our MCU has existed in, and when we meet up with him, a portal opens and he's just yoinked back out of that version of the multiverse and into his own, and Venom kind of quips that the multiverse sucks. So that just basically goes to show you that that scene in the second movie where you thought, oh my god, is he actually gonna meet Tom Hardy's Spider-Man? Holy shit! No, he's not. He's not gonna fight Spider-Man. This movie does not have any Spider-Man in it at all. And again, I continuously ask, why does Sony make Spider-Man villain movies without Spider-Man? I question it so much. But anyway, okay. I have to say that the humor in this movie is consistently fucking terrible. This is coming from somebody who loves bad jokes. I love dad jokes. I love terrible humor. I have a ridiculous sense of humor. I'm very easily amused. But unfortunately, all of the humor in this movie feels like it was written by teenagers who spend 17 hours a day playing Fortnite. You basically just see Venom continuously get shoehorned into this laughing stock, and I get that they set him up as funny in the first one, but it just gets so much worse in this movie. I get it, we have to suspend disbelief. This is sentient alien goo. But how much disbelief can I suspend when none of this shit is funny? It felt embarrassing. I felt secondhand embarrassment watching this film. Now, this movie actually drags in some other characters. We get a doctor by the name of Dr. Payne. She's studying aliens to carry on the dream of her unfortunate brother who was struck by lightning on a beach as a child and fucking died. And if you think I'm kidding, that is exactly what happened. And we keep getting her ham-fisted dialogue to let you know, like, yeah, my dream is NASA, my brother's dead, I love aliens, and I know a lot about cockroaches. That is the only thing you get from this character. And by the end of it, we're supposed to care about her and the people around her. She's got some other doctor friend who wears a Christmas tree pin all year because her mom gave it to her. That line is completely irrelevant because none of these characters matter. We get, of course, your government special ops bad guy, Strickland, I think is his name. He basically spends the entire movie wishing that Venom and Eddie were dead. He is super bland. You could easily pull a basic government special forces guy like that out of any TV show on like the CW or something. And the doctors, none of them are particularly charismatic or interesting. The only character that really has any merit here, again, Eddie and Venom. Venom is somehow worse written in this movie than he's ever been, and I'll get into that in just a minute. At least Eddie, I feel like this movie kind of lets Tom Hardy strut in this sort of emotional thing that he really hadn't gotten to do in any of the previous 2 movies, because he's consistently got this fish out of water, I'm out of control, my body's controlling me thing, because that's kind of his dynamic with Venom. But I also feel that because this is the last movie, they wrote it with this air of finality and this gravitas that Tom Hardy's really able to play up. There are some scenes that almost make you forget what a stupid fucking movie you're watching because Tom Hardy is that good an actor. A script this bad genuinely does not deserve him because he really does such a good job of driving home this relationship that he's developed with this thing that's been living in his mind and his body for a few years now. And he really makes it easy for you to believe that that relationship matters. But unfortunately, the movie basically spends every turn trying to get you to forget that. I mentioned earlier that the humor is terrible and that Venom is terribly written, somehow even worse in this movie. It's terrible jokes, stupid one-liners. The scene in the casino, which I thought looked stupid in the trailer, is somehow even worse within the context of the movie. And it leads to us finally meeting up with Mrs. Chen again, who you probably remember from the first and second movies. And Mrs. Chen ends up having this whole dance sequence with Venom. I don't know what that was about. It just feels like it could have been and should have been so much more. And I'm aware that I'm probably gonna get flack for saying that because most people think that the first two movies sucked. But this character and this performance, they have so much potential to be so much better than they are, even without Spider-Man. They could have been so much better than they were. And being that this was the last one, I mean, the last dance, right? They really could have done so much more with it, and just every turn feels dumb. And I will tell you this, the runtime I think for this is like an hour and 36 minutes or something, and yet by the midway point of this movie, you feel like you've been in it for 2 hours, and the last 25 minutes feel fucking interminable. And at the end of the movie, we get this really cute montage. Now that Venom is dead, he sacrificed himself to save humanity. We all saw that coming. After that sacrifice, Eddie is walking through New York, and we get this montage of scenes from the previous movies and quite a bit from this one, showing sort of special and quirky moments between Eddie and Venom. And for a minute there, I really wanted to buy into it. I really wanted to feel invested in these characters and invested in their relationship. But the problem is that, you know how I said that watching this felt like you were in timeout? It's kind of like when you've been in timeout and you got in trouble and your mom comes over to give you a hug and a lollipop after, but you're kind of like, yeah, well, I've been in fucking timeout for like an hour and a half. I don't really care about any of this right now. That's kind of how I felt. Like, I've been miserable watching this stupid shit for an hour and a half. This felt like a punishment. And now you want to serve me this emotional montage? What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? I don't want any of this. Keep it. Just roll the credits. And I get it, okay? I'm sure a lot of people didn't think it was that bad. And I also get that I played myself. I played myself because I thought it should be better than it was. All the red flags were there. The previous two movies were red flags. The trailers were red flags. Critic and fan reactions from the moment it came out were all red flags, and yet I held out hope. That's on me, but holy shit. I know that Sony's gonna keep going with this stupid shit. We might not get another, like, Venom subtitle movie, but I know we're not done seeing Venom. I know we're not done seeing Eddie Brock, because I know for a fact that Sony is probably still rubbing their hands together and going, okay, I know every stupid fucking thing we've made has failed so far, but we still have Kraven the Hunter, and I know we want to put together the Sinister Six. I know that they probably are still gonna do that, but I wish they'd fucking stop. Please, just stop. Leave Venom alone. Leave the Spider-Man villains alone unless you're gonna bring in Spider-Man. Honestly, I really, this movie kind of ruined my morning. I would say it's better than Madam Web. Maybe because I just happen to like Venom and Tom Hardy a lot more than I like Dakota Johnson and anybody else in that movie. But Jesus, what a stinker. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I will add links to all of those in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance in the comments below.